And the nurses came inside the ward, looked at her and said, "She has no senses." And they flashed on the carpet, and they flashed on the floor. Hamburger lady, hamburger lady. Many times you see what you want to be. Hamburger lady.
The audience was always important to us because our main focus has been communication anyway. So the live events were very important. So now again they are.
Several times they came back inside, looked at her and cried. I can't understand the way we died. I can't understand why. Hamburger lady. Hamburger lady.
We got together about 3 years ago, was it? Yeah.
Originally,
Yeah. Is it the first time we went into the studio together after such a long time, after 20 years or more? We fitted in, we slotted in together and gelled and produced music within minutes, and it just seemed like we'd never been away. It was like being in a time warp or something. It was like none of that had ever happened. The 20-year gap between had just evaporated. It was incredible. It was a great feeling.
Yeah, I don't know how to explain it.
No, I can't explain
And
it
it's probably
really.
just as well we can't.
It's just something that happens. We just feed off one another and we just click in and that's it.
It's almost like a psychic link between us all, you know. It's still there.
We've still got the same inertia and isolation and fear in society again that was going on in the mid-70s. And I think it's always the case that when artists see the breakdown of hope, then it's their job to try and inspire people again. And I think that's another reason we're back together, is to inspire and remind people that they can do something.
When people are provocative now, they do it for its own sake. And there's a big difference, and people pick up on it unconsciously when you're provocative almost unintentionally, because you don't realise it's provocative. What we did, we didn't think was particularly outrageous. It was just a path we were following from our own interests. So I think when it's done honestly like that, with good intention, it becomes a bit strange to other people, and because we don't realise it's strange. So when you get someone who is so-called provocative now, as a sort of career move for press or whatever else, then it's an empty gesture to me. It doesn't mean anything. It has no strength, no power, you know.
The real provocation is when you undermine authority, and that's always possible. Just look at the United States and how afraid they are, and how they're becoming polarized into fundamentalism and fear and desiring the end of the world so they can go to heaven. I mean, that's just a typical example of the recession of imagination. I think you have to start with behavior and try and break down your own inherited system of behavior and see what happens to yourself, and by example you might inspire someone else. The most important thing to do is to try and always look at what you did before and then do something different. It's not that difficult.
I think there is a tendency with people, not only in creativity, but in other fields as well, where when they find a formula, they stick with it because it's safe. Whereas with us, we tend to, once we've done something, we don't see the point of repeating it. And I know people might say, well, you do repeat it because you do, you know, you've done the gigs again sort of thing, you've done the same tracks, but we never do anything the same because none of us can write music, so there's no way we're going to perform, you know, some of the better known tracks like Discipline or something like that, so that even like that they could sing along with it, you know, because people expect, it's that expectation that you've always got to subvert as well. And if you subvert that within yourself anyway, then half the job's done.
We very rarely do the same song the same way twice. Very, very rarely. Probably never.
And sometimes we use permutations, which is a form of repetition. But if you do a permutation in a reasonably creative way, as William Burroughs used to say, that's when you see what it really says. So if you cut things up and rearrange them over and over again, you can actually start to identify how they work on you. And that gives you a certain amount of space to change your consciousness and break away from the narrative that's been written by society.
Punk came along shortly after we started, and then there was a so-called industrial genre, you know, and people, it almost desensitized people, and there's a tendency to think that TG were about that attacking and desensitizing, but it were actually about the opposite. You know, it was about sort of breaking down that barrier people have about certain attitudes to music and life in general, and making them connect again with the world around them and assimilate it in a way that was positive for them to move forward as individual people, to have a collective, really good, powerful force of, you know, of human beings, for God's sake. You know, we've all got to live together.
The people who are in power have got much better at commodifying rebellion, and they've become much more sophisticated in their techniques. Instead of being afraid of something different, they immediately look at ways to exploit it and absorb it and turn it into a product. So the whole strategy has to become something different from head-on confrontation. And one of the things we've talked about amongst ourselves is seduction as a strategy, to be much softer and more appealing and seductive, and thereby give a sort of hesitation to the usual dynamic that happens in terms of those who would prefer us not to speak. So you catch them off guard by not being aggressive, but by being seductive. We manipulate people without a finite message. We teach them to wake up and think and perceive things slightly differently, but we don't say what they should look at. That's the difference.
Splitting sky, splitting sky. Your cash is living, it's in the way you're sitting before the winter comes. In reverie you gas, you're grinding, you're finding, you're grinding down. Splitting sky, splitting sky. Now born dream, once track seed. Maybe now your dream.
I mean, I'm not legally allowed to go into any toilets in America because I can't go in the men's toilet. I can't go into the women's toilet because I'm transgendered, so it's not necessarily resolved. There's still lots of battles to fight, lots of ways to change. I'm personally against the idea of being male or female, so there's always another battle to fight. People assume that the way they're born biologically is how they're supposed to be, but there's no need for that anymore. We can actually imagine ourselves in any way we wish to be and build ourselves differently. And that idea is the same way I think that we use music, is to keep saying there's more possibilities. You can do it different ways. You don't have to keep sort of pleasing someone else, right?
I think that one of the things about TG is that we've always tried hard, we've always strived to be honest with what we were saying and what we were dealing with. And it didn't matter if that honesty, caused us to move into territory that was, personal or painful or, in areas that were not generally regarded as suitable material for songs or suitable material for films or suitable material for printed matter. And that honesty hopefully continues today in that when we make songs or make new work, we try to speak from the heart, and analyze the things that are interesting and are obsessing us now, regardless of whether there might be repercussions or, whether one might be attacked in the street or whatever. And
it's about acceptance. It's like basically what Jen was saying. Body modification or anything else, is about acceptance of an individual's choice. And it shouldn't be looked upon as something that you have to categorise things in terms of the way people look, etc., and judged in that way too.
I guess we've always been fighting every form of censorship, whatever it might be, even people's personal censorship. That's something that we've always found a very awkward thing to accept. That there should be something you're not allowed to discuss. That just seems wrong.
And like with the music, like Jen was saying, he can liken what he's doing with himself now, physically, to how we make the music. And the content of the music, the lyrics, the subject matter, or anything that's inspired us to do the sound, it doesn't matter where it comes from. It's acceptable to us because it's popped up in our minds as being, having a presence at that time. And, that's why, people always question, why do you use these things? Because it seemed right, and there is no sort of unacceptable element.
And we live in a miraculous time with an amazing environment that's technological and digital, and we can go into space and we can do all these fantastic things, but we haven't really resolved how we behave towards each other. And that's tragic, and that's the great downfall of the species. And in our own way, we try and talk about that too. And we try and sort of build different proposals and different ways of doing things in the hope that other people will find some of it useful. That's the best you can do.
Splitting sky turns my bones to snow, turns away, I know. Maybe it's an option, maybe not an option. Maybe it's the conception, maybe it's deception. Everywhere sings, everywhere brings, everywhere is what it wants to be when you come back and talk to me. Splitting sky, splitting sky, splitting sky, splitting sky. Blessed are they who are telling, blessed are they who are welling, blessed are they who are keeping, blessed are they who are weeping, blessed are they who are poor, blessed are they who are sure, blessed are they who are here, blessed are they who are fearing, blessed are they who are nearing the end. Splitting sky! Splitting sky! Splitting sky!